We're back. Another one.
Another one.
No, I'm just kidding. Hi. Well, you should know who I am by now, but if you don't and you're new to my channel, I am Madam Carmen, and this is BDSM 101. It's now time we focus on those pain sluts. Are you one?
Who, me? What?
Also, before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I appreciate all of your support.
Today we're going to talk about masochism. I've already had the class on sadism, so I thought, why not have the yin to sadism's yang? This is about individuals who find pleasure in what society would deem unbearable or painful. Masochism is the enjoyment of pain. Masochism is what sadism craves and yearns. So I personally enjoy the title of being considered a sadist, more specifically a sensual sadist, meaning that I love to enjoy inflicting pain upon those consensually through sensual and sensations that include their senses. Appreciate the efforts and fascination of masochists. I mean, if it wasn't for them, I don't know who I would be playing with.
Where the hoes at? You know?
There is a such thing as extreme sadism. Those are those heavy hitters, if you know what I mean. I do enjoy that, but I also enjoy the sensual connection between me as a sadist and my play partner as a masochist. I mean, like, without them, how would a sadist have their release? Think about it. This is why it's the yin to the sadist yang. Masochism and sadism go hand in hand, and that is because without one, where would the other be able to have their release? We basically need one another to get our fix, if you know what I mean. Most times masochists seek pleasure in people who have similar interests with them. Basically people who find pleasure in what they find pleasure in. Whether that's rope, impact play, electro play, psychological masochism, etc. We find ourselves way more comfortable with having these exchanges with those who enjoy those same types of exchanges, but on the opposing end. Although there are service tops who are present for the pleasure of servitude, service tops may not always find pleasure in the infliction of pain. They're there to serve as a top for someone who is a bottom. Now, a bottom is not synonymous to domination, is not synonymous with sadism or topping. A dominant can be a top, but a top is not a dominant. A top can enjoy being a sadist, and a dom can also enjoy being a sadist. These are people who can mix and mingle those different roles, but they're not synonymous, and vice versa. If you are a masochist, it does not mean that you're a submissive. Submissives can be masochist, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all submissives are masochists. And not all masochists want to submit. If anything, they're submitting to the pain and not the actual power exchange. I would say that a masochist, like a sadist, has a fetish in pain, not necessarily a kink. A lot of masochists require pain in order to reach that orgasmic pleasure. As I mentioned earlier, not all masochists find pleasure in the same forms of pain. There are many levels to pain and how one explores said pain, whether it's through electroplay, rope, impact play, psychological play, subjugation, degradation, humiliation. The list goes on. We don't think that pain being considered just a kink would suffice for a true masochist. But I could be wrong. I know that me as a sadist, I find orgasmic pleasure in inflicting pain on my bottoms or submissives, consensually, of course. Everybody has their limits. Everybody. Even if someone's limits and pain thresholds are higher than another, that person who has very extreme high pain tolerance doesn't necessarily mean that they don't have any limitations. It's important for us to, of course, discuss that during the negotiation process. That happens, of course, when you got it, prior to seeing. Although the average vanilla individual may consider sadomasochism as a form of abuse, if anything that we do is considered consensual, it is not abuse. And the only way that we can consider it consensual is if we have previously discussed our limits, our kinks, our fetishes, our previous health conditions, as well as our traumas and any triggers that may occur during an exchange. The most important thing that we have to remember when we are exchanging is consent is everything. Consent is key. We put consent on everything. It's like the best toppings to our exchanges is knowing that consent is present, consent is evident, and consent is there. Being a masochist is sort of like when someone is a runner and they do that 5K or 10K run and they get that runner's high. Even if they are feeling a bit tired, legs are feeling like noodles, they still push through it and they still find pleasure in that run. That runner's high is exactly what a person can endure when they are a masochist or even a sadist. And of course, we've discussed this before, that would be considered a subspace. It is an alternate space that relates our hormones. And those hormones help determine whether or not we find pleasure in something. Dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, etc. These are hormones that are stimulated and neurotransmitters that are stimulated during times of sensations or feeling different types of sensations during an exchange. The pleasure that someone experiences when they're enjoying a soft baked chocolate chip cookie versus when they're receiving intercourse, when they're exchanging energy with someone and experiencing and exploring intercourse. Dopamine is that experience that helps us realize that we enjoy something, whether it is that soft baked cookie or someone's nookie. So as I said earlier, masochism is an individual's experience. It is not a blanketed experience. It's not something that everyone enjoys, and it's not something that is experienced in the same way. It's usually based off of someone's experience and pleasure levels and pain thresholds. Subspace is the process of the body experiencing an overstimulation of endorphins. I would call it the gateway to subspace. Sadomasochism is definitely a gateway to subspace. Enduring those different sensations, whether they are painful, whether they are a little unbearable or uncomfortable, we push through. And we push through by entering that subspace or that runner's high. Right. So now that I've given you guys a background of what masochism is in relation to subspace, let's break down some different ways that someone can experience masochism. There's physical pain masochism, which is what someone experiences through the infliction of pain in the physical form. They're heavy to light stimulants. It's still a form of physical masochism. Remember, pleasure is also experienced through this pain. Let's not forget that. Masochism is the enjoyment of pain. Some examples of physical masochism are sensation play, temperature play, impact play. Temperature play is when we use different materials that help stimulate our senses through hot and cold temperatures, whether it's hot wax, cold ice cubes. Bondage play is also a form of physical masochism. Bondage play can be participated through rope, through chains like such, or cuffs. Those are forms of bondage play, and that is a physical exchange. Any of these objects can be considered a form of temperature play. Heated sex toys. Now, sensation play has the underlining impact play included in there, because impact play is a form of sensation play. I always sometimes single out impact play just to help those who are a little bit more novice within the lifestyle to understand that impact play and sensation play they go hand in hand. Impact play is a form of sensation play. It is not the only form of sensation play, but it is a form of sensation play. Impact play includes spanking, paddling, whipping, face slapping, punching, etc. Those are impacts. Those are impacts against the body. Consensually, of course. These are practiced consensually. Pain levels differ for everybody, and they're often calibrated to the individual's pain levels and their thresholds. So when we are enjoying impact play as a form of sensation play, it is important for us to learn one's pain tolerance and what levels you can go and reach with an individual based on their experiences and what they can tolerate. Consensual torture is also a form of sensation play, depending on what you're using to torture that particular person, consensually, of course. Sensation play also includes electroplay. Electroplay is when someone uses items like a violet wand that uses electrostimulation for erotic purposes. Here I have my electroerotic neon wand kit. This is what we would call a violet wand, right? And this helps stimulate people through electric impulses and stimulants with various different extenders. So they have different attachments that you can use, or extenders, however you want to refer to them as. And they produce a intense sensation, and the sensations can get more and more intense based off of the levels of intensity that you set your settings on with your wand here. So this would be the wand, and you would attach your extensions here, or your attachments here, and this one, requires for you to plug it up in the wall, and it would produce a electrostimulation. So you would graze this against someone's skin like so, and it would produce a electrostimulation, a sensation, if you will. So this electrostimulation would produce a very erotic sensation. And the higher up in the levels you go, the more intense the sensation becomes. Now, it's really important for you to read the instructions on how to care and the safety measures on how to properly use each attachment, as well as the wand itself. Being someone who's been in the part of this lifestyle for some time now, I've seen individuals actually create their own attachments and use many different ways, materials to create a different sensation. Whether it's electric produced vampire gloves. So I have vampire gloves, and you can't attach them to this violet wand, but I've seen someone use a set of vampire gloves that were attached to an extension like so, that had the attachment to where it could be attached to your violet wand like so, and used to create a very intense sensation. This kit is from the company Kink Lab, and like I said, they have various different attachments. They show them on the back here, and how they can properly be used and how they can properly be cleaned. These attachments are made with glass, so please handle with care. Another way to increase the intensity of using these violet wands and these attachments with the violet wand is getting some electrostimulation conductive gel. This mixed with this can give you a very, very intense orgasmic experience, or pleasurable experience, or masochistic experience, or all of the above. You don't necessarily need the gel, but it is a great way to increase the intensity of the extensions that come with the violet wand. There are also items like electro nipple clamps for your nipples, as well as electro butt plugs. Also, this system called the TENS unit. A lot of times I've seen people use them in the vanilla world to help with vibrations in very tense areas of the body, whether muscles are tense or areas require some loosening up, if you will. They use the TENS unit to help loosen those up, which is a form of electrostimulation and can be used for erotic purposes when used in certain erogenous areas. So whether you use it around the breast, the nipple area, the inner thigh, I say stay away from areas like the face when you're using the TENS unit, and stick to sensitive areas outside of the face. Like I said, your inner thigh, your outer thigh, your arms, your breasts, chest area, even your butt. You can use it on the butt. This is not to say that someone can build up their tolerance. If you play often, if you enjoy the exchange of sadism and masochism, or sadomasochism, and you are a masochist, you're the one who's receiving that pain, you can build up your tolerance by working through training experiences, whether it's getting spanks every day and working up how many spanks and or how long you can receive those spanks. Your pain tolerance is dependent upon what you can tolerate. So next up is the emotional or psychological masochism. This is usually masochism through mind control or psychological manipulation, all of course, consensually. Can be practiced non-sexually or included in your sexual escapades, whether you're having intercourse, power exchange, or just a topping bottoming scene. You can also incorporate the mental or psychological masochism into your scene. Even if you're using physical masochism, you can include mental masochism. That could be using humiliation, subjugation, degradation as a way to mind control or manipulate or bring someone into a mental masochistic space. I highly suggest that mental or emotional masochism is practiced through power exchange that are consensual. So with your submissive, this is something that you guys can discuss previous or prior to the scene to see if both of you guys can find some form of pleasure and some form of agreement on what can be said and what cannot be said. Because some words that are used as forms of humiliation can trigger someone. So it's important to know what words are within their limits that they, are okay with you using. Whether it's a slut, a twink, a little bitchy, a little bitch boy, bitch girl, those different terms. These are terms that aren't casually just used in any exchange. That's why it's important for us to know where someone's mental limitations lie. And you only are able to do that prior to scene during the negotiation process. It is very important for us to know that it is okay for us to use those terminologies prior to and not during the scene. Degradation play is a form of emotional or psychological masochism. This includes that consensual humiliation, sometimes emotional discomfort. This can produce an increase of catharsis or feelings or emotions. In order for us to practice an exchange in power exchange or TPE or total power exchange, there is a certain level of psychological masochism that is instilled and included within that exchange. Power exchange dynamics is also a form of psychological masochism. Now, we know that in a power exchange dynamic, that is including someone who is a dominant, a master, a daddy, a mommy, and a S-type, which would be a submissive or a slave or a little. So it's important for us to know that power exchange, of course, like I said earlier, it very much so differs from topping and bottoming. This is not to say that you would include those verbal humiliation or degradation terms, but more so if someone is viewed as a submissive, they should understand that they are subservient or subjugated under a dominant, understanding that their role is under someone else and not equal to someone else. And that is a form of psychological masochism. During total power exchange, or TPE, it is important for both parties or all parties that are involved to be informed and aware of the safety protocols as well as safe word protocols that may need to be used during moments and times of discomfort or uncomfortability or overstimulation. Role playing is another form of psychological or emotional masochism. Role playing usually includes roles that are contrast to one's actual realistic role that they actually live through. Role play can help stimulate and provide a sense of vulnerability for those who feel comfortable with being in that type of exchange. Other forms of role play could include domestic servitude. So someone who would play your maid or housekeeper, etc. There are other forms of role play, whether you're doing pet play or ABDL, which is adult baby diaper lifestyle. That is a form of role play, whether you are doing a mommy little, a mommy middle, a daddy little exchange. That is a form of role play. It is also a form of power exchange too as well. There is, like I said, as far as pet play, someone being your pet, whether they're a little kitty or a puppy, or a little horse or a rabbit, whatever they feel comfortable, however they feel comfortable within their skin to have that exchange with you. Next one is fear play. Now, I could say that this is also a form of psychological or mental masochism, which is why it is under the emotional and psychological masochistic practices. And this is usually for those who would be considered adrenaline junkies, those who like to have fear instilled upon them that takes them out of that comfort zone of fearlessness or comfortability and tests their limits of how fearful they can become and what fear produces within their body. Some people find it stimulating to role play so they can have a outer body experience physically and not just psychologically, but actually physically having an outer body experience with someone that they feel comfortable with. Whether they say, I'm feeling a little bit of a little like a cat today. Let's do some. I would love for you to pet behind my ears, to help waggle my tail, feed me milk, etc., whatever is comfortable for those partners and what they've consented to and whatever was within their limits. So like dopamine, the adrenaline hormone helps us produce a stimulant of arousal for some people. And that adrenaline can be practiced or experienced or explored through fear. The more intense and extreme, the more the adrenaline increases. So someone who loves roller coasters, that is a adrenaline junkie. Someone who loves that on edge fear, knowing that they could possibly just fall to their death, but knowing they don't want to. It's still that cool balance in between of just testing the limits of how fearful can you get that causes your blood to raise and your heart rate, for your blood pressure to increase and your heart rate to increase as well. Basically, fear can be erotic for some. a lot of times is as if when you are practicing or exploring masochism through fear play, it is a form of arousal for them. It could be a pleasurable stimulant or a sexual arousal. Lastly, CNC. So I tread lightly when we discuss this on this particular platform, but CNC is considered consensual non-consent. This is the most important word within that term is consensual. Consensual non-consent is pre-negotiated and consensual acts of non-consent. These could be scenarios or whole outright scenes. One could be a very light form of CNC or consensual non-consent would be playing with someone's genitals during their sleep, kissing on someone, or stimulating their nipples while they're asleep. Another light form of CNC that I personally enjoy is groping. Groping my partners when they're washing dishes or cleaning up or working out. Groping is a form of consensual non-consent. As long as they have consented to you being able to grope them, touch them in their sleep, etc., it is fair game. Fantasy is common amongst all genders. It is not just for the vulva owners who would like to experience this. I personally have a partner who is a penis owner who loves and enjoys CNC. And one of his favorite practices of CNC is when he is asleep, he will always call out CNC before he goes to sleep. That means that we can fondle him, we could touch him, we can tickle him, we could bite him, stimulate certain parts of his body, stimulate erogenous zones on his body while he's sleeping. They're generated through lived experiences. So someone who practices CNC or consensual non-consent could be using this particular practice as a form of healing for past experiences that were not consensual. Safe words and safety protocols are a must. It is very important for someone, if someone wakes up during a CNC scene and they're like, hey, no, I'm done, no. You immediately remove yourself from the scene. You immediately raise your hands and cease from sensation. A lot of people experience an adrenaline rush or a load of sensation or excitement or arousal from participating in CNC, whether on the giving end or the receiving end. Like I said, it can be a form of empowerment for some, a form of therapy, and a form of release for others, or all of the above. But the most important factor within this particular category of psychological masochism is the consent factor. Just remember that sexual fantasies are normal, whether they are a derivative of a non-consensual experience. Being a muscle daddy myself, I enjoy fitness domination. I enjoy instilling various exercises, workouts, and practices on my submissives and my bottoms, not just for the sake of their health and their wellness and their physical well-being, but also just for the sake of me being a sadist. I love seeing someone whimper at the thought of having to do 100 jumping jacks or 50 push-ups. I love seeing that. It is so arousing to me. Henceforth, why I am a sadist. But those who don't mind or enjoy or find some form of pleasure out of being physically put to work through fitness and endurance. Another category of masochism is endurance masochism. This is more so aligning with a fitness dom, someone who pushes someone's limits through fitness encounters, through fitness practices, whether it's bodybuilding, calisthenics, yoga, stretching, etc. You're pushing someone past their limits through these forms of exercises and practices. One of my favorite sayings during endurance masochism is feel the burn.
Feel a burn, Chris. Feel a burn.
Feel the burn. Some people do enjoy their physical endurance tested, which is why, like I said earlier, we have people who have and experience those runners high. That is also a form of endurance masochism. Someone you tell, like, if as me being a dom, I tell my submissive or my bottom, hey, I need you to go out and run 50 laps around the house. And they're not known for running. They can give me all the sass that they want. They could whimper and whine, but they will do it because we are in that power exchange realm where what a dom says is what you do. And if they tell you to run 50 laps, do 100 jumping jacks, do 50 burpees, you will do them. Increasing your stamina overall. I think that's also another reason why I do enjoy endurance masochism is the benefits that they hold. The increase of your stamina from weightlifting, squatting, running are benefits that you can benefit from as a bottom or submissive. Someone who is experiencing the masochistic end of the endurance masochism exchange. It's not just only for me to benefit as a sadist, but also for you to be able to push through those levels of uncomfort or disgruntlement or pain and see the results at the end. The prolonged exposure to discomfort can help increase that endurance level. Physical training and physical restraints are great examples of endurance masochism. We just spoke about the including different workouts, different routines, different exercises, and different exercise practices, whether it is weight training, whether it is yoga, running, calisthenics, etc. Restraints like bondage is also included within that as well. This allows a person to focus on their limits in a controlled way. There's also a mental discipline. Some enjoy the mental exercising of discomfort. Controlled breathing, mental focus, meditation, mantras. People enjoy the structure that someone else gives them. This helps build a sense of accomplishment and resilience. People love that and enjoy the results of that. But sometimes they need a strong hand to help push them and navigate them through whether it is a physical endurance or a mental endurance. But once you actually experience that push of your endurance and stamina, you may get to a point to where you're able to do that yourself. But people who find pleasure in this will always want to go up and level up to the next level. This is why some people enjoy being led by coaches versus or trained by physical trainers when they're at the gym, because they know that those people will push them to a higher level of endurance and increase their stamina, because they know that they're probably not able to do that themselves. Another form of masochism is sensory deprivation, which is kind of self-explanatory. You have 5 senses and you're deprived of one or all of them, or some of them. You could be blindfolded and gagged. These are 2 of the 5 senses that are deprived. You could be blindfolded, nostrils closed with a clothespin, gagged, headphones on, restraints on the hand so you can't feel or touch anything, etc. And all 5 senses are deprived. It's important for us to make sure that we consent and know everyone's levels of limitations and pain thresholds. You don't want to get someone blindfolded or deprived of their sense of scent and they start freaking out on you. There's a variety of ways that you can deprive someone of their senses. As I mentioned, there are 5 senses. You can deprive them of 3, 2, 1, 4, or all of them. It's also important to note that when one sense is deprived, it is also known for all of the other senses to be heightened. So if you do put a blindfold on someone, the sense of hearing and taste may increase when you feed them something or you play some music. Mix it up. Mix it up.
Can't you mix it up a little bit?
This also increases the level of vulnerability that one may experience within this exchange. So if there is a such thing as sensory deprivation, there has to be a such thing as sensory overload, which is another form of psychological or emotional masochism. Sensory deprivation, on another note, can also be a form of discipline and punishment. But we're not talking about that here. I'm just letting y'all know, giving you a little hint, a little tip. Finding pleasure in their intensified discomfort is where sensory deprivation comes in handy. This is when you overstimulate either one, two, or all the senses that a human possesses. Whether you are using electrostim, which is and can be used as a form of sensory overload. Honestly, any physical masochistic practice can be a great source to overload someone's senses, whether you are spanking them with the same consistency of impact, or spanking them while they're blindfolded, their mouth is gagged, it's cold in the room, or you're using ice cubes as well. You're just making a whole big gumbo of sensation play. That can cause a sensory overload. Mindful, we have to consent to these things, and they have to understand what is being used on them. They have to be aware of what can potentially be used on them, around them, or with them. We don't want to trigger someone or have someone have a very negative trauma response to something that is supposed to be pleasurable. Without pain being overt or the focus, intense sensory overload doesn't have to be physical. Like I said, it could be an overstimulation of the senses of sound, of smell, of taste. Sensories are how our body responds to the surroundings that surround them.
Okay.
Overloads are a variety of sensations simultaneously overwhelming the senses. Examples of sensory overload could be tickling, scratching, biting. I love all three. If you're like me and you are a sensual sadist, you will enjoy sensory overloads or even sensory deprivation. But speaking on sensory overloads, I enjoy tickling someone, biting someone. I'm a very primal dom, a very primal individual.
Sexy.
Overall. So being able to use my own senses or my own body as a form of sensation, as a tool to provide different stimulants of sensation, it's such a turn on to me. I feel like it's the deepest way that we can create a connection with someone we're exchanging with. When we're using implements such as this bread roll here, whether we're using it as a way to apply pressure on someone's skin or to inflict a implement of pain or sensation, this is the middleman. So this is what is between me and the person that I'm using this on. Or I can use my hand and not have a middleman at all. The person who is using their hand, the top or the sadist or the dom, is using their hand as a way to conduct a form of sensation on someone else. You may experience a form of sensation on your hand, whether it's the tingling sensation or the pain sensation. So while someone is enjoying the sensations being given from a sadist could also receive the pleasure of the tingling sensation that could be a masochistic sensation as well, when they are having that exchange. It's kind of like the saying, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. So you have the bottom or the masochist receiving pleasure. You're receiving pleasure by giving them that pleasure, which is through pain or intensity or sensation. And you could also be receiving sensation and pleasure through the intensity of it as well. Uses of the Wardenberg pinwheel, vampire gloves, feathers, light grazes against the skin with your fingers are all great ways to inflict sensory overloads. The more intense the sensation, the increase of the overload. All the items that I mentioned earlier, the Wardenberg pinwheel, the vampire gloves, the feathers, brushes, all of these can be used interchangeably or they can be used individually. I suggest using them interchangeably if we're doing some sensory overload. We can also deprive senses while we're practicing sensory overload. A great example would be blindfolding someone, depriving them of their sight, while also using ice and grazing it across their body, or using a warm metal toy and penetrating them, or tickling them with a feather, or tickling their feet with your fingers and your nails. Using objects that provide a pleasurable pressure, whether it's your body, when you put your body weight on someone and you're pressuring, or you're doing grabs or squeezes. There are different items and different tools and implements that can be used to apply that pressure, if you know what I mean. Another way to inflict a sensory overload is through pressures and vibrations and stimulations through electroplay. A great way to apply pressure is also mummification, applying pressure on one's body by mummifying them and keeping them compressed, keeping their body compressed, whether to themselves as you're wrapping them or compressed to a bed or a chair when you are wrapping them. So this is a vibrator, and the size matters. This vibrator can be used individually for personal use, or I can use this on a partner. There are different levels to the sensation, so they increase when you turn it on, and the sensation increases the higher you turn it. There's also these bumpy ends here. This is an attachment that could be replaced and used. They have different attachments for this particular vibrator, but this one is my favorite, which is why it's been on here for so long. But this attachment can also create and produce a different sensation when you are vibrating. It can make the vibrations and the sensations way more intense. Vibrators speak for themselves. They hum and they come with so many levels of sensation. True exploration of masochism derives from what's within first. It's all about learning and knowing what really turns you on, what arouses you, what stimulates you, what can bring you to that orgasmic level of pleasure.
What's nice
Gets the people going.
What can bring you into that subspace? We learn this as we go. It's not always something that we just know about, which is why exploring within this lifestyle is so important, but it's also fun and it's enjoyable and it's educational. You will learn what your limits are. You will learn what your kinks and your fetishes are and what you enjoy as a masochist or as a sadist. Learning these things helps us establish a better relationship within ourselves. That way, when we are seeking someone to play with, a play partner, a potential sub or dom, we'll know exactly what it is that we're looking for. We'll know exactly what it is and how we would like for us to connect. If I'm someone who loves to tickle some people, I want to find people who enjoy being tickled or who don't mind being tickled or who finds pleasure in being tickled. Sometimes you can find someone who finds anger in being tickled or violence, physical responses and reaction to being tickled. Some people may have a trauma response behind being tickled. This is just an example, but it is really important for us to learn ourselves from within first. Establish what it is that we like and what we enjoy before we go out into the world and allow someone to decide for us. Although I breezed through a few variations and forms of masochism, there is an extensive level of ways and practices that could be explored as a masochist. With all of the various toys that I've showed you, the various different materials that I've showed you, that's just a small list of items that can be explored through masochism. Although that these can be very complex and nuanced ways that people can navigate to a subspace, it is important for us to understand what we like and what we enjoy as masochists or sadists. Physical sensations, emotional sensations, psychological and endurance sensations are all great forms of masochism that can be safely and consensually practiced, whether you're practicing as a solo kinkster or someone who's trying to establish a dynamic with someone or a play partner of some sort, or actually have play partners or is in a dynamic and you just want to explore a little bit more about yourself. You know, you want to explore or challenge yourself or test those limits. It's important for you to know exactly how to navigate through these different forms of masochism. Not all of them may be for you or may not align with the way that you kink, and that's okay. That's why so many options. You may not want to explore through endurance training or masochism. You may enjoy the form of emotional masochism through subjugation, humiliation, degradation. You may not like that at all. You may like the physical aspect of masochism, receiving the impact of whether it's asphyxiation play or breath play, whether it's through face slaps, whether it's through butt slaps or spanks or scratches or pinches or grabs, bites. It's so many ways that we can explore masochism or sadomasochism in its entirety. Find your route. Find what suits you. Those physical elements of pain can produce a sense of euphoria. For others, an emotional release can bring us to a euphoric subspace. Others find pleasure in the emotional and psychological surrendering. It's all about what it is that you enjoy and what you like. I can't stress that enough. All of these different practices, while you're testing limits and pushing boundaries and getting more comfortable with being fondled while you're in your sleep, always remember, negotiation prior to scene is imperative and it helps prevent abuse and consent violations. Create a pathway to orgasmic bliss through the masochistic experience. Next time, put some consent on it.